Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. The 2016 Vermont legislative session just ended, and today's guests are two members of the House who actually survived it. To my immediate left is Representative Michael Marcotte and Representative Gary Viens. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
And as I said, you survived it. And some people might think, that's not that tough. Well, I've served in the State House, as both of you know, but I looked at this last year, and I looked at the last 2 years, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad I weren't there. I think it was tough.
It was tough. It was certainly different, different than what I've gone through before. But I mean, they can all be tough in different ways. So, you know, I mean, we've got budget issues, and you know, I think that between that and, you know, having to deal with marijuana, instead of, you know, actually looking at how do we stimulate the economy of the state, you know, that sucked a lot of air out of the session.
Right. Now you are a seasoned veteran of the State House. When were you elected first?
I was elected in 2004, so I started serving in 2005.
Have you seen a lot of change over your time about how we go about making laws, or do you think there's more? Do you think there's more people going down there with just special interest, or you think people are more alike than they are different throughout the time?
Well, well, over my 12 years, I think certainly seen a shift in, you know, in the parties. When I went in, the year I ran, the Republicans had control of the House. After that election, we lost control of the House, and I've been in a minority since. The first year I went, we were 60. Now we're, what, 53, I think?
53.
So, you know, we've gone down as low as, you know, in the low 40s.
Yeah, I think when I was there, it was like 40, 49. The only reason I remembered it was the 49ers.
Right. And, you know, I think we even dropped below that at one point. So we're starting to gain back, but, you know, you're seeing a lot of liberal candidates and a lot of liberal people being elected, which is forcing the budget more into human services areas, overspending in our budget, and it all is in human services. So I think we've got to start reining some of that in. It's you know, I think we're at a junction where if we don't start getting control, that, you know, we're going to have serious problems.
Now, Gary, this is your first 2 years.
Correct.
You managed to really keep I'm not saying you kept a spotlight on yourself. I don't mean it in a negative sense, but you actually, a lot of people, your first 2 years, even yours, because of your background in law enforcement, you understood the basics of the process, but you've got to admit it's a learning experience still when you're sitting there.
Certainly is, and it's really funny because before I was elected, people asked me about that, and I said, well, you know, I've kind of dealt with different bodies, legislative bodies throughout my career. Let it be here in the Newport City Council when I was first a police officer back in the late 70s, all the way up to working in Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Border Patrol and dealing with the members of the up on the Hill of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So I kind of thought I had a pretty good basis of what to expect. Boy, was I wrong about that, because it's a totally different ball game in Montpelier. And like Mike talked about earlier, was the fact that you know, you've got the supermajority of the liberals and Democrats and progressives that are running the show, and there's really no give and take aspect of the legislative process, which I found you know, very different, because under normal circumstances you would think that the best ideas would gel with everybody and move forward. Well, I found that not to be the case. So again, that was very interesting.
Right. Now, it appears quite to me, I love politics. I'm just glad I'm not in it. I would bet pretty good money we're going to have a Republican governor.
One can only hope.
Yeah. Will that change? And I suspect that after the last couple of years, the Republicans will pick up a few seats. You're certainly not going to get the majority, but what will a Republican governor mean for Vermont?
Well, remember when Jim Douglas was governor, and he had, the majorities were in the House and the Senate were Democratic, but I think having a Republican governor can help the issue of bills not being compromised on.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that with Jim Douglas, that he was able to, move the direction more to the middle instead of to the left, getting away from the left. So I think that will be very helpful for the state to be able to have someone in the governorship being able to move that dial on legislation more towards the middle of the road instead of the left of the road.
I will say, for the sake of both parties, I think there's some great candidates on both sides. I have noticed one thing. Some of the folks who I actually consider friends who are running for the governor, as Democrats for the governorship and for lieutenant governor, none of them seem to be dragging around Governor Shumlin with them. This is not a political statement. This is more of a historical statement. I don't believe in our lifetime we will see another governor like Governor Peter Shumlin. I was talking to Gert Hodge, who's 97. She's been down in the State House now as a lobbyist for our various groups, including like AARP or something like that. And she has dealt with governors way back, Democrats, Republicans, and she certainly doesn't think that she will live long enough to unravel the damage that has been done. Now, so.
Well, there certainly has been damage done. We haven't seen a huge amount of spending when you're looking at the economy and economic development. So, I don't see the state has been going forward for the last 6 years. I think we've been going backwards. When you have budgets that are 4, 5, 6% increases every year, and you're bringing in 2 or 3% in revenue, that just doesn't work out. I think one good thing that came about this year was that we finally stopped using one-time dollars to fund the budget. But it's going to take a long time to get out of this.
No, it does. Has there been some positive developments over the last session?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, yes, but not from the budgetary aspect of it, because like Mike was talking about, the 2 years that I was there, we saw increases of somewhere around 5% per year, 4% per year on 2% growth. Again, unsustainable. So from that aspect, no, I didn't see much good coming out of it. But on the other hand, I know Mike worked extremely hard on bills in his economic development committee, as well as in my committee, House Judiciary. We worked extremely hard on bills such as DLS, the driver license restoration project, strengthening DUI laws, the IIDs, immobilization devices to curtail people who are under the influence of getting in the vehicle and driving. So was there positives? Absolutely. But again, when you talk about the budget, yeah, I don't think it was very healthy for the overall economy of the state of Vermont.
What do you think, Mike?
There's always positives that come out of the sessions. It doesn't matter how difficult they are. When I look at my committee, We dealt with consumer protection, which we do every year, and we passed a pretty robust consumer protection bill dealing with internet dating, protecting people in that respect. Structured settlements. There's these new companies now that they call litigation funding companies. We didn't have any regulations on them whatsoever. Now we're requiring them to register in the state and then gather data to understand how they really work and to see if we need further regulation. So we did that. We also had a bill that protects our farm equipment dealers and other people that sell chainsaws and all that through their warranty work and their dealerships, that it's levels the playing field a little bit between the big national manufacturers and the people that are licensed to sell their equipment. So there are positives that do come out of the session.
You know what's interesting now, listening to you two talk about some of the work that has been done in some of the positives. Isn't it funny how a lot of that never makes the news? Okay, it isn't sexy enough. Is the media, and God bless the media. I love the media. I grew up in it. That's where I began. But the media has a way of focusing like a laser beam on some issues, but then they, especially if they're going to create kind of like chaos.
Much like the marijuana bill.
Yeah, but they don't focus on the real stuff, and so some of this, and I try to follow your stuff in the media, but I hadn't ever heard like this whole warranty thing and so on, and so how many you have? Some you have a contested race coming up. Mm-hmm. Then I think Mark Higley does, and then Lauren Shaw has stepped down. He's been in and out a couple times throughout the last 20 years. He's out. Brian Smith is in because he and Lynn don't have competition. But the big thing is you're going to be going back no matter what. Well, personally, I think you'll have a Republican governor. But then the question mark is who's going to be the lieutenant governor. But then also you have a clean sweep because the Senate pro tem is not returning. All the head Democrats have decided that's enough. That's relatively rare from what I understand, that all these Democrats would step down all at once.
Well, it's kind of...
Oh, and Speaker Smith, who's now running for...
Lieutenant governor, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's certainly going to be different. When I first came in, Gay Symington was in her first year as a speaker. And, that first year for someone taking over speakership can be a difficult one. And, she had a hard time that first year trying to get the session to end. I think we got out at June 5th that year. So I think the next speaker coming in, hopefully they've watched Speaker Smith. Shap he does a really good job of being, when he says we're pulling the trigger, he pulls the trigger. And if anything gets left by the wayside, it's too bad. And I think that's the way it's got to be run. We can't be there for that length of time. So I'm hoping the next speaker has watched and learned from how Speaker Smith has run the show there.
I think our current Lieutenant Governor, Phil Scott, who's running for governor, I think he's made mention, at least this way I understand it in the media, he'd like to hold sessions down to 3 months.
90 days, yeah.
Back in the old days, back when there was a lot of farmers, they had to be out for crop season.
Right, sure.
And every once in a while, I know things are more complicated now, and they are, because what? It's great for armchair politicians to know exactly what's going on, but having served there, and I'm sure you'll know, Gary, there's far more work that goes on behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
But it would be nice, what people don't understand is you're only paid while you are at the State House, during session. You're not, when you go to all these meetings during the summer, you're not paid. It's all volunteer. You don't get rich, you don't get benefits. But the thing is extending these sessions further into the year almost makes it so the average working person who would like to serve can't serve, because you might be able to get off three months so you could serve from work, but 4 months, 5 months,
Impossible.
you're not going to do it. So what you get is, I don't know how many more businessmen are down here like you, Mike.
There's not many. I'm trying to count them up. They're 5 or 6, maybe more. I'm not really sure. But
right. And how many do you have any? Well, we had one farmer there, but he got Norm McAllister, but we all know how that ended.
Right.
He ended up being. Do we have any farmers left though?
I still have a few. Harvey Smith.
Okay.
He's still farming. I saw David Ainsworth is running again.
Okay.
He was in
Yeah.
a few years ago. He's a farmer
Yeah,
too.
he was with me. Yeah.
So we still have a few people that have been either practicing farming now or have been farmers. So Dick Lawrence and Lyndon.
Sure.
So-
I used to joke to people, if I went up to 10 people and asked what they did for a living, 8 of them would say they were lawyers. Yeah, that was a little exaggeration. But on the other hand, to be fair, some of these lawyers are great to have down here, because what a lot of people don't understand, everybody talks like, well, we got to base rules on common sense. Well, you know what's wrong with that is common sense is different for me, it's different for you, and a lot of times
Sure.
common sense is unconstitutional, what we come up with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's great to have.
Well, I think it works the best when we have diversity, and you have different. You have business people. You have people that are in the nonprofit world. You have lawyers. You have all of these different people in different occupations have different experiences throughout their life that they bring that to the table, and it works best when we have that diversity, and we have the ability to be able to debate and to cast your vote as you see fit for your constituents, and that always doesn't happen either.
I actually see you guys are in a super minority, I believe, in another area, though. At least when I was down here, I was super minority when I said I was born and raised in Vermont.
Absolutely.
Is that
true.
is that the case now?
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Now you were both born and raised here, right?
Absolutely.
And
The
it was
old
like,
Broadview Hospital.
yeah, and the Broadview Hospital was now a parking lot. It was
Yep.
where
Yeah.
Northeast Kingdom Mental Health
absolutely
was.
correct.
Yeah, my mother used to work
All
there too.
right. But so, yeah, and it's great to have newcomers there, but it is also good to have some.
One of the funny things about that comment, Scott, was when we first get there 2 years ago, we especially all members of the legislature received the booklet that explains who your fellow legislators are, where they're from, their background and stuff. And so I get to thumbing through it one day, and I'm thinking, somewhere around 75, maybe even upwards of 80% of the people that are serving in the House today, they were born other than Vermont. There's just so few of us, like you said, native Vermonters that are serving today. It's actually scary.
Right.
So, and they don't understand. It's like you said, diversity, which is great. They, they've moved here because they love Vermont's way of life, but they don't understand our history the way we do, and it's almost like I keep telling this story. The first time I met a governor of the state of Vermont I was probably 7 years old or so, and it was in my next door neighbor's kitchen, and that governor was Phil Hoff. So again, we have the historic knowledge. We've got life experiences of how Vermont operates, and these folks truly lack that.
Right, and because some. It's great that they want to serve, and some of them are outstanding, but there's other ones who have, it's amazing how fast they've moved here and been able to get themselves elected, So did Did the PSAP with the dispatch centers, was that this session or last session? One session runs into
Well,
a
it was the last session.
right.
You know, but another issue cropped up this year was it made it to the media and caught our attention that you know, there was talk of Department of Public Safety going to stop
Right.
answering 911 calls. And so I put some language together and got it in a telecom bill that, you know, they would have to continue to take 911 until the legislature says differently. But then we put a study together, and that actually ended up in House Bill 130, where they're going to look at not just 911 call taking, but the whole issue of dispatching. Who should do it? There's, you know, some areas that get it for nothing. Most areas are paying. Most municipalities are paying for it. So we got to look at the best way of providing 911 call service, and also the best way for dispatching to happen. Should it continue to be kind of a hybrid system that we have now? Some of the state police are doing it. The Moyle County Sheriff's Department is doing some municipalities doing it on their own. You know, I don't know if that's the best way or not, but this committee is been put together. The governor signed the bill, so that'll be happening this summer with a report coming back to us in January.
In that department, Department of Public Safety is headed up by hometown boy Keith Flynn, but you know, every once in a while I'm thinking, I think after the governor's gone, I think he might be job hunting. I don't think another governor is going to keep him around. What do you think?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to speculate. That's, of course, not my decision. So, you know, I think it's they'll have to look at you know, each department, each commissioner will be looked at by whoever the next governor coming in. I know that they're all required to hand in their resignations January 1st, and the new governor will make his decisions. So I think I'd leave that up to them. It's not my call.
But that's another fact that you just mentioned that I actually alluded to, and whether he'll be retained is the commissioners of all departments serve at the whim of the governor. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, the commissioners and the secretaries.
Right. And so there's going to be, if we have a Republican governor, there's going to be substantial change no matter what.
There could be, but you know, there are. I mean, I've worked with a lot of secretaries and commissioners, and you know, there's some that have worked for doesn't matter which party is in there. You know, and there's some good commissioners there. You know, Commissioner Susan Donegan is retiring from government. She's done at the end of the month. She's done a great job in the Department of Financial Regulation. You know, Annie Noonan, Commissioner of Labor, she's done a great job there too. So, you know, it's all going to depend on, you know, where they want to go and where the next governor wants to go.
I'd like to give you one last follow-up on Commissioner Flynn. Having served myself in a capacity much like his, but at the federal government level, you know, I know firsthand that what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. Now, I have no idea whatsoever what happened behind those closed doors when it came to the PSAP closing, but as the person who follows orders from the higher ups, which in this case be Governor Shumlin, you know, I've heard a lot of people talking about how the decision was made and you know, and how Commissioner Flynn came to that decision. Well, again, I'm not convinced whatsoever that was solely Commissioner Flynn's idea. But as a person who's in charge of that department, he has to take his marching orders, and therefore, whatever the policy decision is, he puts it forward. So
well, I asked him out on this very show. I looked right at him. I said, is this your idea? And he says this was, he totally denied it was the governor's idea.
Well,
But,
and again,
and I know nothing about PSAPs, to tell you
Right.
the truth. You would.
yeah, and and again, that comment from him. Again, I have no idea what the real story is, but many times I've walked out of meetings where my thoughts were not taken fully into consideration. When that door opens up there, the folks that work for me, they said, "Well, what happened?" "Well, we decided this." "Well, gee, you were in favor of that?" Regardless of if I was in favor or not, you carry that water and you say, "Well, of course I was in favor of it. In fact, it was my thought." So
Yeah.
again, I'm taking that with a grain of salt.
Hey, you know, I can't get done the show without mentioning one of my all-time favorite legislators down here is somebody outside of your party, and I bet you've even come to really appreciate Cynthia Browning.
Oh, love Cynthia.
Cynthia Browning is, I tell her all the time, she is what a representative should be.
I agree.
It's easy for Republicans to do battle with Democrats. It's easy for Democrats to do battle with Republicans. But you've got to also sometimes do battle with your own party when you see them going astray. And I was down here when Cynthia got there, and you know, at first you think she's a little eccentric. Well, she is in this world because she will do battle with her own party. She holds their feet to the fire, and you know, I love the woman.
No, I agree 100%. In fact, I've walked up to her many times and said, "You know, Cynthia, you're my hero."
Right.
Because, like you said, she doesn't matter. She's all for her constituents and what's right for them, and the piece of legislation that's in front of her. And so many times in the last 2 years, she's got up to address the chamber, and you could see Speaker Smith's eyes roll in the back of his head as he has to recognize her. So, and she's in his party. So
Yeah, because but she really is what we should be about.
Yep.
Because, you know, I used to go, like I have a feeling every once in a while my votes, if I recall right more than once, you'd look back up at me and think, what is he doing? But I also know you are not. Now, I don't know your voting history, but to be fair to you, you have also taken a stand against some Republican initiatives if they did not go against what you thought
Sure.
people back home.
Yeah.
Because I will say this, don't let it go to your head, but I think you're one of the most respected legislators down here. Maybe not anymore, but at least when I was there, you certainly were.
Not after this, right?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, but you know, it's when you vote lock, stock, and barrel with your party, then you're not representing your constituents. I don't think. So, you know, I'm here to represent the people of
Right.
Orleans County and the Kingdom, and ultimately Vermonters too. And you know, even, you know, whatever decisions we make doesn't just affect the people that we represent here. It's the whole state. So I think we have to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, because even though you two are fairly conservative Republicans, you don't just, you know, you might not disagree, you might not totally agree with everything that your liberal constituents think, but I know you still have them in your mind.
Sure, you have to. I mean, we're representing everybody, and you know, when people email or call or write us or you know, talk to us, they come in the store and chat with me, and you know, when they do that, you got to listen to them and listen to what they're saying. And you know, there's times where I've voted against, you know, my party, because of what my constituents have told me, and you know, that's the way it's got to be, I think.
Right.
But you know, there's going to be issues where you don't agree with, you know, what your constituents are saying, or the majority of them. There's, you know, some moral issues that you know, go against what I feel morally, and sometimes you have to vote differently than the way the majority of your constituents are asking
And
you.
you know what? Most of us, you know, we love to label ourselves Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals. I'm a mess, and I think you already know I'm a mess from seeing. I'm all over the map myself. I'm ultra conservative in some areas, and I am just as far left on other areas than you could ever imagine. But I think that's all of us.
That's a
Sure.
Vermont way of life. Like, I consider myself be fiscally very conservative, but on social issues, I'm at the very least a moderate. You know, I wouldn't probably go so far as to say that I'm liberal, but I'm certainly a moderate. And you know, when it comes to the vote, even for myself, every time that I voted on something, the first thing I think about is what would the folks back home want me, how would they want me to vote? And I voted for different things, you know, one way or another. That was totally against my own personal beliefs,
Right.
but that's just the way it is, because I'm not there representing me. I'm there representing the people of Orleans too.
Right.
And like Mike said, all of Orleans, all of the state of Vermont, so.
In closing, we only have a couple more minutes left. Is the one bill I'm going to tell you? I predicted this was the year that marijuana was going to be legalized. I really did. I don't care personally. My first book was Rum Runners and Revenue is Prohibition in Vermont, about the prohibition of alcohol. So I was getting ready to write my next book, the repeal of prohibition of marijuana. What happened there? Because I'm going to tell you, I predicted this was the year. What happened?
I think the House got cut out of the conversation last summer.
Yeah.
The Senate took it on the road. The House wasn't part of that. I think that's one of the issues. I think for the House, I think the House members don't, the majority, I think, feel it's going to happen sometime, but it's just not the right time yet. And I think, you know, you have Colorado, you have Washington, you have a couple other states that have legalized it. They're having issues. Let them work those issues out, and then let's go after it and do it in a responsible way. I think you know, when you look at statistics in Colorado, there's issues with the kids, and I think that's got to be our main focus: is how is this going to affect our children? Driving right now, there's no test that you can to give someone to figure out if they're driving under the influence of marijuana. So, you know, we got to work those issues out, the issues with edibles. So let's get it figured out and do it in a responsible way. Don't rush to anything. Do we really want corporate growers in the state of Vermont growing marijuana so you can go and buy it at a liquor store, or, you know, or a marijuana store, whatever you want to call it? Is that what we want? Is that the right way of going about it? So, you know, we talk about the black market. Do we need to, you know, if we start taxing it too high, you're not going to do anything with the black market.
Right.
So.
Okay, I'd like to end by this way, totally off the topic, which is not unusual for me. But the last few weeks has been tough for Orleans County. We've lost a lot of people. You know, we've lost to accidents, to overdoses, to even my classmate Dana, who was scared to death of flying and her airplane breaks up around her. What do you have? You know, I know this isn't, you don't legislate life and death, but what do you have? You know, how, you know, I've never felt so much, there's almost a community grief. You know, what do you got to say about, you know, this feeling where you know, the last few weeks and months?
I'd like to say that, again, having been born and raised in northern Vermont, I remember a close friend of mine getting killed in a car accident in the 6th grade. And it seemed like every year after that, there was another person that got killed in a car accident or drowned, or just so many things. Summer's so short up here. Everybody lives life to the fullest, and the recent tragedies, you know, the investigations are still going on. So I'm certainly not going to comment on any of those. But we have to understand that life is precious, and we have to understand that, when you're out there this summer having a good time, you got to think responsible, because at the end of the day, the most important factor is being home at the end of the day, making it home safely. So each and every one of us has to take it upon ourselves to look at life that way and act accordingly.
Okay.
Well, it is a tragedy, and for these young people losing their lives, we will never know what the future was holding for them, how important they are to our community, and I think Gary's right that summers are short. Go out and have a good time, but you have a responsibility also that you don't get behind the wheel when you're impaired. And it doesn't matter if you're drinking alcohol or smoking marijuana. You don't. That's just not something you do. And you have to have that responsibility, especially when you have passengers with you. And it's just a terrible tragedy. And I just hope that the sight of the car that was in the newspaper was horrible, and I hope people really imprint that in their mind that we can't have this. This is we had 5 fatalities over the weekend in 4 accidents, and they all had issues with alcohol. So
Okay, now my final words, but because these tragedies in the last, some of them are natural, like football coach Tim Semino, I think 48, 49, died of a heart attack, and as I said, Dana, airplane crash. So some of these weren't totally anybody's fault, but one thing I've noticed is we're at our best. This area is when we experience tragedy. You get to see the best of Orleans County. You get to see the best of the Northeast Kingdom. But in saying that, come on, God, give us a break. We've been we've been through a lot, and I think we're about. I'm hoping for better things. So if you can legislate better times, let's go for it. Okay. Hey, thanks for coming on, and
Our pleasure.
Thank
you. Do you both plan on going back?
Yes.
well,
absolutely.
it's up to the voters, certainly.
And the door knocking begins.
Soon, very, very soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.